welcome back to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman. Welcome to episode 300 and something. Basketball, winter sports, heading into Big Ten tournament season, Big Ten championship season. Men's basketball has 1 week of the regular season left. We'll talk about that in a minute. Women's basketball, regular season is now complete. Rutgers finished, unfortunately, last place. A ton of injuries this year. Kaylin Schmeichel barely played. Iowa Sidibe was out all year. I want to talk about that team a little bit more as this week goes on. They will play Minnesota, the 11th seed, on Wednesday in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. So hopefully they can extend their season there. Coquise Washington's second season at Rutgers, big recruiting class coming in. Definitely want to give some time to cover that program as the season ends, and also just talking about their offseason, a big one for the program, but one in which they're adding even more talent in the recruiting ranks. Then you have, of course, Big Ten wrestling. The Big Ten championships begin this coming weekend. I'm going to have Eric Vesper on this week to kind of recap the season that was. Rutgers finishing 4-4 in Big Ten competition, right in the middle. Kind of right exactly where they were at the start of the season, kind of, right in the middle of the conference. Haven't gotten over that hump in terms of the top 5-6 programs in the league, but pretty much above everyone else behind them. But what will they be able to do from an individual standpoint and a team standpoint, both in Big Ten championships and nationals? So have Eric Vesper coming on this week to discuss that. And wanted to dive into some spring sports real quick before I talk more about basketball. But in terms of Rutgers women's lacrosse, you have a really good start to the season. They're now 5-1. They did lose to Princeton last week, but they came back and shredded Oregon over the weekend, future Big Ten foe. So they're now 5-1 to start the season. They're ranked number 22. They host Penn State to open Big Ten play on Saturday at 1 p.m. Penn State's just 2-4 this year, so big opportunity for Rutgers. Women's lacrosse, Melissa Lehman, this team, as much as they struggled at times last year, they were just one win away from making the NCAA tournament, essentially. Women's lacrosse does have a bigger field than men's lacrosse, so hopefully this team can continue. Cassidy Spillis is obviously one of the best players in the country, multiple, All-American, so we'll have more there. Men's lacrosse bounced back this past weekend, and after losing the Army top 10 team 2 weeks ago, they've now beaten Loyola 13-5, Hofstra 13-8. They'll play their lone midweek game of the season on Tuesday against Detroit Mercy and Piscataway. Detroit Mercy is not having a good year, and then huge rivalry game on Sunday, March 10th, noon in Piscataway at SHI Stadium, playing Princeton. Both teams are ranked right next to each other, 15-16. Huge opportunity for this Rutgers team to get a statement win on the season. And as expected, Ross Scott, Shane Knobloch leading the way for this team. Want to get more into that team as the spring advances and winter sports wrap up. And then baseball, 8-2 now. They took 2 of 3 at Charleston Southern over the weekend. They lost the first game 11-8, then won 9-1 and 9-7. They'll host Wagner. That is the home opener for the season on Tuesday at 6:00 under the lights at Bainton Field, and then they will head back down south to Greensboro, North Carolina, where they will have a 3-game set against High Point, and then stay down there for spring break, and then have 2 games at Chapel Hill midweek next week. So intriguing, 2 games in Chapel Hill for Rutgers next week. Have to take care of business along the way. I think the biggest thing with these spring sports is that they have to get wins in non-conference play. If you don't get certain wins in non-conference play, you put so much pressure on Big Tens that, you can really be on the bubble, and we've seen them fall short of late. So this is a huge, huge time for all 3 of these spring programs that are off to good starts. Hopefully it continues. Let's talk about Rutgers men's basketball. Obviously, disappointing performance on Sunday in Nebraska. I went into length in it, my rapid reaction, saying how I couldn't even believe how close they were just based on how poor the offense was, the shooting and all that. So here we are, last week of the season. They're at Wisconsin on Thursday. Wisconsin desperately needs a win. They are fighting for an NCAA tournament bid, and Rutgers has won in Madison the last 2 trips. So this is a huge chance for them. I think, and then you have Ohio State, who's now off for the week. They've won 4 or 5 under interim coach Jake Diebler since Chris Holtman was fired. I wouldn't say they're on the bubble, but they still have a slight chance to get into bubble consideration. So they're going to be, pretty fired up coming to Piscataway on Sunday, looking to play spoilers on Senior Day. What does Rutgers have left? What do they have to play for? How much do they have left in the tank? It's been a long season. They've faced a lot of adversity. There's been injuries to, a lot of players. I think yesterday, you're seeing certain guys step up and you're seeing other guys struggle. And I think Peichel, he stuck with a shorter rotation against Michigan. That worked. He tried to open things up a little bit. I think it worked to a degree. I mean, you saw guys like Gavin Griffiths and Antoine Woolfolk have really good games and honestly keep Rutgers in the game when they would have gotten blown out if those two hadn't played the way they played. So I know, listen, I mean, they've now suffered their first losing season of Big Ten play in 5 years. Extremely disappointing. Also speaks to the consistency that the program has had. But at the same point, haven't gotten the results you wanted, have been very, very, very bad offensive team all season. But you can't say that Peichel hasn't tried different combinations. It hasn't worked. It's worked less than it hasn't worked more than it has worked. Apologize. I have the Mondays, and it's full throttle here. It never stopped. But just in terms of continuing to try to get the most out of this team, it hasn't always worked. But what is left? What can this team? Can this team finish with some positivity, get a win on the road at Wisconsin, or worst case, win on Senior Day? That would be nice. A lot of guys are going to walk. And go into the postseason, right, with a positive, with a win. Would like to see them at least finish with 8 wins. If you win out this week, you finish with 9 wins. All kinds of scenarios right now. It's going to be hard to finish out of the top 4 if they split this week. Right now, Ken Palm actually projects them to finish with 8 wins. So to a loss in Wisconsin, a win against Ohio State, they would both finish with 8 wins. I haven't gone back and looked at the tiebreaker yet in terms of who would finish ahead for that 11-12 game. But, you have Indiana there, you have Penn State there. There's a lot of combinations of things that could happen. Maryland is, not looking very Maryland has 7 wins. Penn State has 8, and they play each other at Penn State. Is that their lone game left? Yeah, that they play on Sunday. Rutgers is at Wisconsin. Michigan, we know, is last place. Ohio State goes to Rutgers. Indiana is at Minnesota on Wednesday. They have they have 9 wins now. So they've really turned it on. They're 8-10. I was looking at the Ken Palm projection. So what is Indiana? Is Indiana going to lose out this week? They are at Minnesota, and then they host Michigan State. That is pretty tough. Rutgers owns the win over Indiana. So listen, if Indiana loses both games, the Rutgers can just win 1 of 2. They're going to finish ahead of Indiana. So, and then how that works with Ohio State potentially, I don't know. But there's still hope that Rutgers can get a single bye. I know some people are turned off and just, they're out. They don't care. But I care. I think a lot of people out there still care. I want to see this team finish with some pride. It's a very difficult time right now because they are out of NCAA tournament contention. And in this day and age, I mean, if you're looking at the offseason, if you're looking at the state of college basketball with lenses from last year, you need new lenses. Things have changed even more so from last year. From 3 years ago, I mean, that's like looking at a black and white film or a film with no sound. I mean, it's changed completely. And now that there's no 2-time transfer rule, I mean, essentially it's, you're looking at free agency. And so I said this in my recap last night, our rapid reaction. You can't assume anyone's back. You can't assume anyone's like anything could happen. And I'm not like trying to lead that, certain guys are leaving. You just don't know. I don't think a lot of things are even close to settled, right? I mean, technically, if there's no tampering, which, we know that there is, but in college basketball, but at the same time, you hope that as many guys as possible are still vested in this team and in this season. and they finish as positively as they can, individually, as a team. And, it's a real challenge. And there's a lot of distractions out there. And, there might be some guys that have their mind made up that, they're going to test the waters. And there might be guys mind made up, they're coming back. So we don't know. There's a lot to unravel and think about and unpack. And it's complicated, and what every player is dealing with, what this team is dealing with. So I'm really curious to see how this team finishes up. Really curious to see how the coaching staff handles it. You have to imagine it's been a frustrating season for everyone, for fans, for the team, for the players, for the coaching staff, for everybody. So how will everything unfold down the stretch here? 2 regular season games left, Big Ten tournament next week in Minneapolis. There's still opportunity. And, you have to imagine that everyone, even from a personal perspective, wants to finish strong. But can they? Is there enough cohesiveness in this locker room? Is there enough togetherness? Will that show up on the court? Will the vintage Rutgers defense be there? How can they generate enough in terms of offensively? It's not just shooting, but in terms of how they are operating, how much they share the basketball, how much they can get to the rim, how much they can get to the foul line, how much they can capitalize, how much they can execute. I mean, I get it. They've been really poor for all season offensively, and they were really poor on Sunday night. But, they've had their moments. I think you're not looking for a miracle, but you're looking for a complete effort, a balanced effort, right? You're not looking for a 50% shooting night. But if Rutgers could play Rutgers defense and shoot 42% from the floor and rebound, they can win those games. They can win those games. When they play at a certain level, there's plenty of teams in this conference they can beat. There's, I think, a few that they can't right now. Purdue, I even think Michigan State, the way they're constructed, they always struggle against Iowa. So Big Ten tournament is all about draw. It's not just seeding. And I'm really curious to see what happens, because I think in the right situation, I don't think this team is done yet. Hopefully they don't fold up the chairs and just kind of, not have good performances this week, especially at home at the Rack on Sunday. They lost last year at home to Northwestern on Senior Day. You want to see them be able to get that Senior Day win for so many players that have meant so much for the program over the years, and just good vibes going into the postseason. Wisconsin, I've said it before, I like the matchup. They have obviously already beat them once. I'll have a full preview closer to Thursday's game in Madison, but there's a lot still to run through the rest of this season. And then there's plenty of talk for the offseason. I plan to talk a lot about, just roster construction, the state of the program, the transfer portal, players to potential targets. I mean, there's going to be a ton to talk about, but I'm not going to do that till the season's over. I really am hopeful that this season that they're not done yet, that there's some positive things that could still happen. Obviously, we're looking at player development right now. I mean, Gavin Griffiths, really showed some positive signs in the loss on Sunday, and has shown some glimpses that, things are starting to click a little bit. The speed of the game is slowing down. He's being a little bit more physical. I like the way he's using his body more. So, there's plenty. If you're, I don't want to say, listen, everyone has a right to feel however they want to feel, but if you are transfixed on the journey of this program and the details of this program, then there's enough meat still on the bone to be interested in this season. And I hope you are. And if you are, I'm going to be there, because that's what I want to talk about. And again, I'm going to mix in all the other sports. There's going to be plenty of football to talk about soon with spring practice, but just kind of wanted to give a kind of updates here and kind of where my head's at. And I hope, as always, I hope you want to listen and watch and enjoy. And yes, so listen, I have a couple Wi-Fi glitches here in episodes lately. I got a new laptop. I'm working on I just ordered an adapter. I'm going to do through web service through my phone, which is supposed to be pretty fail safe. I'm at work. I don't have control over Wi-Fi or the routers here. Even had a little bit of issues at home. So hoping to have those issues better. If this impacted this episode, I apologize. But starting Tuesday, I'll have the new setup, and we'll see how that goes. And appreciate everyone's support. And Talk to you tomorrow.